Hey everybody, what's going on? I'm Fabian for Liberty. FabianForLiberty.com is the website, also FabianCalvo.me. Hope you caught my interview with Greg Hunter yesterday about the shadow banking system, the collapse of Japan's economy with an unprecedented historic QE, and a bunch of other things we covered as well, including banker so-called suicides, or they've actually been suicided, as I've been reminded by many of you listeners. But I want to talk about the Russian economy, I want to talk about the Russians, and I want to really get into what could potentially be one of the most dangerous 2 years for the Republic. I'm going to break all that down in this video as Russia moves to ban the dollar in Russia. More on that, as well as developments with Eastern Ukraine as well. Just want to let everyone know that if you are new to any of my real estate investing courses or what have you, are totally new to real estate investing, which is more of an unorthodox style that I've been teaching, which it's all virtually done from your home computer, I'll be hosting a webinar later today. The registration link is down below. I will also be emailing that out, but you have to register in order to get the email version of it. So, okay, let's talk about the economy. Last night I posted a video on shadow banking, also kind of like an extended piece, if you will, on some of the things that I broke down with Greg Hunter. Really just talking about what I think will collapse the U.S. economy, really the global economy. Not tomorrow, not next week, and probably a couple of years, but maybe a little bit longer. It is this quickly growing, I mean exponentially growing really is the word, of the shadow banking system. And how the big banks that run America, run the West, how they've been able to set up this shadow banking system, most of it offshore, and have been able to use it to completely manipulate every single market. And case in point is the manipulation of the US dollar, with a lot of mainstream analysts talking about this dollar bull run, where the dollar is basically surging. Now, I personally think that is completely coordinated by Japan, by the ECB, by the Bank of London, and by America as a currency war against the Russians and the Chinese. You look at the ruble in Russia is down 25% this year alone. And now the Russians are basically saying, well, we're going to ban our citizens from being able to use the dollar, which is a pretty hardcore move, would really hit their tourism as well if they're not going to take dollars at all. Because a lot of Americans and a lot of people go there with dollars to visit. But what does that mean? Because the Bank of Russia isn't gonna. They're still gonna use dollars. They're still gonna use dollars to sell oil and all kinds of stuff. But they're gonna, I believe, prepare their citizens. And I think this is draconian. I think we should be able to use whatever currencies we want. But the point is that I may be preparing their citizens for this new currency block that I believe is, and I pretty much know for a fact, is being established as we speak with countries like China and India, Brazil, and other countries as well that recognize the powder keg that is the U.S. economy, and more importantly, the fraud-backed shadow banking system, the fraud-backed Federal Reserve System, and the fraud-backed big banks who have 4, 5, 6, 7 sets of books, and it's a complete scam. And anyone with any foresight can figure this out. This isn't like, some kind of crazy, hyper-researched forecast. This is a pretty well-known freaking fact that when you create as much credit and as much margin debt and as much phony fiat dollars as America has, it's not going to end well. But why? What does that have to do with the next 2 years? Well, Obama clearly the front man for the New World Order, one of the weakest presidents of all time, not respected by probably the guy who shines shoes at the White House. He is an absolute disaster. And things aren't any better that now Republicans got in. They're, in fact, the faction of Republicans that got in. Not many Rand Paul, Ted Cruz type libertarian Republicans got in. No, the more progressive Karl Rove, Jeb Bush type Republicans that are all ready and willing to start World War III. These people think they're Cold Warriors. They think we're living in the Cold War. And I think, Putin recognizes that his opportunity to likely bring in Eastern Ukraine into Russia, to maybe expand into Eastern Europe, his time is now. So it's dangerous globally. It's also dangerous at home as well. I was going to, do a whole video about, I'll talk about this today on the podcast, about how, Obama could very well push civil war in America in the next couple of years. And I know that sounds like hyperbole, but look at his speech after the election. You would think he would be like, well, obviously the American people aren't down with my policies, and this is a repudiation of those policies, but just the opposite. He's talking about global warming, how he wants to push that by executive action. He's talking about immigration. They're now saying by December he's going to give amnesty to millions of illegal aliens. And what does the average American think about that? Well, they're completely against it. And their voices are not being heard at all. And when you add in a disgruntled American population, when you add in an American population that has no representation whatsoever stopping the insanity of this government, and you couple that with the economy not getting any better for the average person on Main Street, it is ripe for civil war. And, again, I don't want there to be a civil war. I'm not cheerleading for civil war. I hope I'm wrong about this. But again, as a student of history, I'll tell you, it's a dangerous period of time. And other world leaders get it. Putin gets it. Putin gets that Obama, his time to move right now is now. Also, he gets that his influence over the Iranian nuclear deal is huge. The Iranians, of course, siding with the Chinese and the Russians in all of this as well. So the world is fundamentally changing. One last point I want to make, Ukraine hasn't really been talked about a lot, but the Russians have sent more troops to the border of eastern Ukraine. They've sent now ballistic missiles to the eastern Ukraine border. They've also been flying nuclear planes over Eastern Europe. NATO is now saying they need to have more forces in the area to patrol the region. So this is a hot deal going on right now. And you get a nut job like John McCain running the armed forces or running the committees that run the armed forces, and it is ripe for this larger regional war that I've been talking about now for some time as part of a global economic reset. Again, I hope I'm wrong about this, ladies and gentlemen, but when you have psychopaths running the country, just doesn't spell good. Now, one other point, too, I want to make is that as they manipulate the U.S. dollar upward in this last-ditch effort to basically keep it as the world reserve currency, they are, in essence, starting currency wars against the Russians and the Chinese. And it is this bloc of Japan, Western Europe, or the ECB, and America and the Bank of England against the East. It's this Eastern superbloc power that is forming rapidly because they recognize they don't want to be controlled by the Mandrake mechanism. They don't want to be controlled by the criminal banksters in Wall Street. They want out of that system. And if it means that they have to put their countries to depressions to do so, I think they're willing to do it. And let me tell you, I think they would probably have a mandate from their populations to get out of the dollar payment system. What do you think? I'm Fabian for Liberty, Fabian Calvo. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, if you want to watch my beginner real estate investing webinar later today, that link is down below. Thanks for watching. I'm out.